They say even lightning doesn't strike at the same place more than once, but our neighbours are not as fortunate. The Taliban is laying siege to the airport and it is a big concern for India. So who are the ruthless Talibanis? What do they really want? Can they ever be contained? Here's a special report. The busiest airport of Pakistan was attacked. Our neighbour was still trying to take stock of the situation when the terrorists hit the same target for the second time in a row. The terrorists responsible for this audacious attack were ruthless. They didn't fear death, and they wouldn't stop anytime soon. The attack was on Pakistani soil, but it was a reminder for India and for the rest of the world how vulnerable we are. Yes, there is a reason to be intimidated. What is happening in our very own backyard is scarier than you can imagine. No peace talks can slow this enemy down. In a historic meet, Nawaz Sharif and our Prime Minister Narendra Modi swore on working together for peace, bilateral ties and strong governance, with one single goal: prosperity. But even before the peace talks could take wings, an evil eye was awaiting to cast its curse. Just days after the much-lauded Indo-Pak meet, an attack at the busiest airport of Karachi wreaked havoc in Pakistan. The blast was carried out in Karachi, but the tremors rocked India and the rest of the world. Just minutes after the attack, the dreaded Pakistani Taliban took responsibility for the attack. They swore this was only the beginning. They would take control of Pakistan and overthrow the government. The second attack showed the world what they are capable of doing. These terrorists are stronger than you can imagine. The Pakistani army and the rest of the world now stand like mute spectators. There is no enemy more dangerous than an enemy that doesn't fear death. The enemy lurks closer than you can imagine. Karachi is just around 600 kilometers from India. The terrorists responsible for the death of hundreds of innocent people in Mumbai had made their way to India via Karachi port. Well, the attack on the busiest airport in Pakistan, it's a horrifying reminder of the 26/11 Mumbai attacks. The attack may be on a different soil. The perpetrators may be from a different terror group, but when these extremists attack, innocent lives are lost. What is happening at our backyard? how bad really is the Taliban problem, and why has the Pakistani army been unable to control the Taliban problem? Where exactly do these terrorists come from? Here's a report. The enemy within. On a regular day, Pakistan looks vibrant and colourful, very similar to India. But in fact, even the cattle here is on high alert. The entire country is under attack from the inside. The wards in the army hospitals across the border are full of soldiers who are victims of the enemy within. These soldiers were sent to conflict zones to control the Taliban problem, but the enemy's presence was stronger than they had expected. Until the Karachi attack came to the fore, their story was hidden from the rest of the world. The situation is so severe in Pakistan that the victims are not just soldiers, there are attacks on civilians on a daily basis. The main culprits behind these attacks are the Pakistani Taliban. They are a branch of the Afghan Taliban, but only even more ruthless. For years, experts on terrorism have been warning the government on the rise of the Taliban movement. But looks like now it is too late.
From being a very small group controlling a small area, they have expanded. They now have enlisted the support of militant groups in Karachi, in Punjab, in Sindh, Kashmiri groups who were fighting in the Indians in Kashmir. There is now a full-scale extremist movement in Pakistan that is trying to overthrow the state.
Let us now take you to the remote Pakistan-Afghan border, Waziristan, the root of the problem. Waziristan. The inspiration and agents of some of the worst acts of terrorism inhabit these remote landscapes in a place called Waziristan. According to intelligence, even the Karachi attacks can be traced back to this remote frontier. Pakistan's poorest border with Afghanistan is even today open to smuggling and terrorism. Since 2002, it has been the real home of the Al-Qaeda and the Taliban. After the US invasion in Afghanistan, the Taliban simply relocated to Pakistan, and that is when all the troubles began. As the years passed by, local recruits from Pakistan took over the Afghani Taliban and started a more ruthless branch of extremists who came to be known as Tehreek-e-Taliban, or simply the Pakistani Taliban.
In the tribal areas, half the population has fled. Not so much because of the army, but because of the Taliban. They hate the Taliban, they're scared of the Taliban, and they fled. And some have fled as far as Karachi and Dubai and the Gulf. Others have fled to refugee camps just outside the tribal areas.
The Pakistani army deployed at the nest of Taliban terrorists find it difficult to contain the terrorists within the border. It is the terrorists or even their influences that slip out and eventually lead to an attack like what you have seen lately in Karachi. The Pakistani army tries their best, but it is a difficult terrain to fight the lethal enemy. And well, it's not just the terrain. the enemy also retains an advantage. They grew up here. These are some rare visuals taken by a local journalist in winter. The Pakistani Taliban moving secretly through South Waziristan. They are allies of the Afghan Taliban, but they have their own leaders and an agenda. Unlike the Afghan Taliban, who is now set to get rid of foreigners from their country, the Pakistani Taliban wants to replace their own government with a Sharia dictatorship.
جمهوریت خبره مو وکړه چې جمهوریت کفر دی جمهوریت جوړ شوی د یهودو د لوسدای او د مسلمانانو د تفریقې او تقسیمولو لپاره البته دومره چې د پاکستان حکومت چې د غلام حکومت د امریکایانو او د اوباما عبادت کوونکي خلک دي دغه د اوباما د امریکایانو خبره په دې داسې لګیږي لکه چې میشته د خدای امر ښکاري.
Until a US drone strike in Pakistan killed Mahsood in the village of Dande Darpak Hill in North Waziristan, he was one of the most feared and most documented Pakistani Taliban leaders. The Taliban terrorists who killed many innocent people have no remorse to announce the siege on Karachi airport that was carried to avenge their leader's death.
Please don't kill the ladies. We have told you a number of times. Please.
You haven't told me that, but now I know.
I have told you a number of times.
Where?
Everywhere, everywhere.
South Waziristan now has a deserted look. Most of the residents who once lived here were asked to leave so that the army could launch their operation. The few who have been given the permission to return have been forced to surrender their traditional weapons. Despite the close army monitoring, even to this day, the Sharia law is followed here. The only women who are seen here are fully veiled. The tribals who call this place home know that war is a tradition that is a part of their life. Every single day, new recruits join and things are getting worse by the day.